CJ Allen isn't getting the attention he deserves, but that might change fast. Could the 2026 NFL Draft's biggest breakout come from a linebacker? Stay tuned to find out why we think he is the best player that you need to know. Ryan, I'm all in on CJ Allen, the Georgia linebacker. How do you have him graded in this 2026 class?
I think he's going to be a first-round pick, Joe. I think he is Roquan Smith all over again. For like Georgia fans out there, I think the body type is similar. I think the athleticism, the range is similar. Like this kid is a pretty easy evaluation. I know some people are going to look at his size and kind of have question marks there, but the range, the instincts, like it's all there to be a really good player, man.
He's one of my highest rated players at the current moment, and we were having a little bit of a discussion last night about a different player. And I had brought up, we were talking about Caleb Banks, and I brought up how Caleb Banks is one of the few guys that I was like, whoa, CJ Allen is the other guy. And I don't think I can name anyone else where I watched their tape and I was just completely blown away. The instincts that you just talked about, it is very reminiscent of Roquan Smith. I think the one thing that shines for me is the explosiveness and the burst that he's able to generate in short areas. He's not going to be a 4.4 guy in terms of long speed. His instincts make up for that. But the way that he's able to just explode through ball carriers, explode through blockers, clear space for himself, and then finish plays, that is the dangerousness. He is exactly what I think that the modern day inside linebacker is in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And if he ends up being a top 10 pick like Roquan Smith was, like Devin White was, I wouldn't be stunned because he checks every single box that we look for in a linebacker prospect.
Well, I do think he's the modern Mike because he's a very interesting player because he has range to play outside of the tackle box, outside of the numbers, but he is also physical and a downhill player where he, even with a lighter box, he is able to be a plus run defender very early on in his career because he plays with reckless abandon to a degree, but like he also comes to balance and has a power profile to be able to knock dudes back both at the point of attack and as a tackler. So I really think he is just a very well-rounded football player. There's some things that I necessarily wouldn't ask him to do in a defense, but for that modern Mike linebacker role, who's going to be super physical and have to play outside the numbers when he has to, I think that he can do anything for that a team will want him to do from that position.
Right. I'm not like really asking him to cover like a ton of range and a ton of space. He's compact. Like if that was like the one weakness to identify is that he's not very big. He doesn't have a lot of length. I was listening to a clip of one of Miami, one of the Dolphins defensive coaches was talking about how the big emphasis now is the best teams have speed and they have explosiveness. Best defenders. You can find success and create success with a room full of athletes on defense. And I think that despite him being smaller, that build that he brings to the linebacker position, I think produces more success because he can fly all over the place and he can really command between the tackles as a team's Mike linebacker. The ceiling is just tremendously high for him to be a tackle leader, to be a presence, a communication piece within a defense. There's just so much that you can get out of CJ Allen. He, to me, there's a shot that he slides and goes later than I'm pushing out here right now, Ryan. Mm-hmm. But he, to me, is one of the prospects that I can say at this current moment before the season starts that I feel will end up still being a first-round pick.
Yeah, no, I think his floor is pretty good for the position. He's obviously been a mainstay for the Georgia Bulldogs for multiple years. I mean, he was so good as a freshman. He basically pushed Jamon Dumas Johnson out, and he had the ended up transferring to Kentucky, right? So, like, he was so good early on in his career. I think the only thing that is really a drawback to him, and you mentioned it a little bit, outside of the length, though, I do think that he's more linearly explosive than I would say that he's like change of direction guy. Like I do think that he's a little bit tight in that capacity. So I do think there's some limitations as far as just his impact on passing downs. But I agree with you, man. Like this kid's a starting Mike linebacker in the NFL very early on in his career, and I would not be surprised if he ends up developing to a Pro Bowler.
Going quickly into his background in the 2023 class, he was a 4-star recruit, so he wasn't even one of the biggest names in that amazing Georgia recruiting class in 2023. Number 4 linebacker, 48 overall prospect coming out of Barnesville, Georgia. And in high school, interestingly enough, he was a basketball player as well. Averaged 7.7 points per game as a junior in high school. playing basketball. I don't know what position. I would assume he was a point guard. But still, he is a former multi-sport athlete. He also ran track, ran 23.58 in the 200. So this dude has had a display of athleticism from high school up until now.
Yeah, I mean, his high school highlight tape was pretty fun. If you want to go back and just Google CJ Allen Huddle highlights, he was probably, I think Joe said he was listed like 217. I would have guessed he was about 220, like somewhere in that ballpark. But just range, man. Like he's explosive, blitzing from multiple spots, playing range from the inside, working himself out. So it's not surprising that he's developed into a really good linebacker. He's very different, though, what they've had, honestly, recently at Georgia, because they've had more of those longer, more explosive inside linebackers the last couple years. You think about like Quay Walker, you think about Smile Munden. This is more in the Nakobe Dean type of style as far as like body type wise, but he's obviously a much more explosive athlete than when Nakobe Dean was coming out. So he's more of that dense physical guy, and he's now developed into one of the biggest leaders on this Georgia team heading into 2025.
Folks, comment below how early you would draft CJ Allen. Hit that like button and subscribe. We'll be back with more.